Hey, you listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM 89.0, ArrowFM in the Wire Rapper, and Manawatu People's Radio. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Yo.
So I feel like a lot of the show this week may be over on the SmackDown side, even though there was only like three matches. We're still got to hit Raw, we still got to start off how we are. We did figure out who Kurt Angle's opponent would be at WrestleMania.
You know what? I love it. I love it because it was the out of left field. Nobody expected it. Nobody expected him to actually follow the storyline.
Yeah, I as soon as you start saying I love it, my first guess is, did you love it because the internet hated it?
No.
That's just an added bonus?
I really like Corbin, and I love the fact that they didn't forget the storyline, that they picked up on it, and that it should be a decent match. A lot of people are expecting, we need this such and such so we can have this amazing match. Kurt isn't capable of it anymore, but he is capable of brawling. And what is Corbin's specialty? Brawling.
I was gonna say flips, but okay. I'm always seeing Corbin do the flips. the suicide dives, Hurricane Ranas, it's straight out of Corbin's moveset. But as you say, storyline-wise, this is the opponent that does make a whole lot of sense. I know last week we went through a bunch of alternates. We're like, it could have been this, could have been this. Those options also would have made sense. But in this case, it is Baron Corbin that we'll be seeing at WrestleMania in Kurt Angle's last match.
At least as of right now.
I can only comment on the now. But the now also said that Kurt Angle had a pretty decent match against Chad Gable on Raw. Pretty decent.
Yeah, it was alright. And he still has... I felt Kurt was struggling to keep up with the younger Gable, but I don't think that's really to be expected, though, right now.
Fair enough. We're jumping over to another storyline now. We got Elias, and he's going to be the headlining musical act for WrestleMania.
Yeah, and apparently we're going to have 3 hosts, and a dozen wrestlers not doing anything.
So far, as you say, we've had Elias, Alexa Bliss, R-Truth, and Carmella, I believe, all announce non-wrestling roles for WrestleMania. She'll be interesting what happens in the lead-up. But if I look down the list of WrestleMania 35, there is a whole lot of singles matches so far. And what that means is that there's a whole lot of leftover talent.
And there doesn't appear to be a Battle Royal to cover it. Or so we thought. But a certain monster said that he was going to enter the Battle Royal, which is the only person to actually say that at this point.
It wasn't necessarily a surprise. I guess it solidifies the fact that there is no feud in Braun Strowman's immediate future. And he will jump into the Battle Royal, and we'll see. Maybe he walks out the winner, maybe he doesn't. It'll be interesting to see. I know usually the person who announces himself early has a pretty decent contendership towards the end of it. But yeah, as you say, Braun Strowman, he's bringing the match, and as far as I'm aware, is the only announced entrant so far. This one's going to cross over both brands. Sasha Banks and Bayley, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champs. They got themselves 2 feuds at the same time.
Yeah, it almost looks that way. For the first time in our history, Bayley wrestled on SmackDown.
And, let's say...
Lost.
Yeah, wasn't the victor. That 0% win rate on SmackDown. Sasha Banks had her match on Raw first off against Natalya. Beth Phoenix coming in and pretty much offers the match that we expected. The Beth and Natalia versus Banks and Bayley. So we've got a feud over here on Raw with those four. And then we take the belts over to SmackDown, and as you say, Bayley wrestled and Bayley lost as a part of the tag team with the Iconics, the best women's tag team around, clearly, coming out on top. So now it seems as though, the Iconics were building that match before it happened as well, and then they defeat the champions. We have two feuds running simultaneously, and which one of them, I guess, is going to come out on top? I would assume Beth Phoenix coming out of retirement would hit up higher than the Iconics.
Or maybe they would just let's do a fatal 6-way or something.
Just bung them all in the ring at once.
6-pack challenge, yeah, there we
go. I'm perfectly fine with that. It would make sense, with the belts being cross-branded, ignoring NXT for the moment, that there's a team contending from both brands having a shot, so I'm not against it. Do I need to talk about Dana Brooke basically being beaten into a pulp?
Rip Dana.
We all knew it was going to happen. We knew Dana was not going to last in this match. I watched the match from bell to bell, and she was a lot longer than I expected.
I was hoping when she said she was getting a title match, I was like, oh, please let it be the tag title match, because you're not going to survive, Ronda.
Yeah, the match was all the match was ever going to be. And let's put it that way. To tie in, we talked about the Kurt thing and Kurt versus Gable. On the other side of the coin, Baron Corbin, his opponent, losing against Apollo Crews this week. And then, I think it was last week with Kurt Angle and Apollo Crews. It seems as though there's like a gathering of the, I would say mid-card, arguably, with definitely Crews and Gable there. And they're just sort of rotating out the positions at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see who next week slides into those two positions and continues this sort of going in a circle, picking opponents and having some matches before the big clash. Let's talk a little bit more about Batista. He's showing up and he's doing pretty damn well.
Yeah. Usually those sit-down interviews live don't really work that well. But this one worked really well.
Yeah, I was quite happy with it. The purpose of any promo at this point is to build the feud between Batista and Triple H. And it did exactly what it needed to. And Batista always is going to come off as credible. And as a real threat heading into this match. So, again, I'm quite hyped for the match. We're just building that hype level even higher. Finally, Seth, Drew, it's all over the place, but Drew McIntyre has now taken out the entirety of the Shield, but wants another go at Reigns.
Yeah, that should be fun. It should be a really good match between them.
It was, I believe, what you'd told me a couple of weeks ago, and I believe I screamed no, quite well knowing that Drew McIntyre would then end up losing that match. Sentiments have not changed, but hey, it's still a high-profile match. And with that match, if it, I believe, gets announced, because it's still iffy-wiffy as far as I can tell, we've got that and the Women's Tag Champs, brings us up to 12 matches on WrestleMania, with neither of the mid-card titles... with only one of the mid-card titles and neither of the men's tag team titles with an announced match. So, she's either going to be a really long card, or something's going to have to give.
Yeah, I think the last I'd seen, there was a projected 17 matches.
I do have to wonder, obviously it's a really long weekend with WrestleMania, you know, with Raw and SmackDown after, and you got NXT TakeOver before it, Hall of Fame before that. And I know this year, I believe, New Japan with their Tokyo Dome show that they always do, they're now splitting it across 2 days. And I wonder, not obviously this year, because it would have been announced and hyped, and there'd be all this sort of fallout from it, but I do wonder if in the future, possibly next year, we're going to see a 2-day WrestleMania card.
I don't know if we'll see a 2-day WrestleMania card, but we might see, like, a live show on Fox, like, on Saturday. It's not billed as WrestleMania, but might as well be.
It's pretty clear that there are too many matches.
What they'll probably do is they'll probably take TakeOver, and put that on Fox, and then probably bring in a few of the regular stars, and then have that be the show.
Yeah, I could see it. I'm interested to see what this whole Fox thing brings down the line, but in terms of this year's WrestleMania, as you say, 17 matches is just an insane number. I'm gonna try not to make too much noise typing here to go see how many we had last year.
I think it was 16.
Gotta scroll down. It was 14 with 3 on the pre-show.
So 17?
Oh, sorry, 14 including those 3. So 3 pre-show, 11 main show. So we'll have to see how they manage to fit everything together. I'll believe it when I see it. And if the answer is 10-hour pay-per-view, I'm gonna be tired. At that point, I would rather the 2 days. If we ever end up getting to the 10 hours, just chop it in half and go 5 and 5. Alright, anything else about Raw you want to talk about?
No, I think we've hit everything that was important.
Easy, that means we're gonna get to go on to our entrance theme this week. Usually I can take a stab in the dark at least at what your plan was when you picked the theme. I got nothing this week.
That's because I had nothing. It was completely random. First thing popped in my mind.
Every week I ask you for a theme. And somehow this week, from a completely random option, we got Men on a Mission. Because why not? And you're back with Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM, ArrowFM, NPR, Grady and Josh. We're on the SmackDown side of the song now. We talked about Banks and Bayley. Let's talk a little bit about Miz and McMahon. We're basically just building that story more and more and more, and trying to get the sympathy behind the Miz.
All right, the Miz is number 2 in terms of Mike's skills in the entire company. If you want to include Paul Heyman,
okay, he
sold this match. People were saying, I'm not that interested. After the match, they were saying, I'm very interested. And that's what Miz does.
Yeah. We talked about it with the Triple H Batista thing, you know, everything from here on out. The match is set, it's just about building hype for that match. And very much like that, jumping over here, Miz basically, as you say, sold that match, and it went from no interest to let's see what happens.
People were saying it was his best promo since the Talking Smack promo. And I guess I can see that. Miz is just really, really good. And it is a shame that he's not wrestling for the WWE Championship. But honestly, based on the story we've gotten, I think I'd much rather have what we have than have the obvious that we were expecting.
Mm-hmm. Is that because of Shane McMahon's piece in it, or because of Kofi's piece in it?
That's because of Kofi.
Gotcha. That was my assumption. I was just checking. But we'll get to him. We got one more piece before we get to him, and that is Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair building towards their feud as well. Based on the fact that technically they're both still SmackDown superstars as far as I can tell. So it would make sense to do a little bit of the build here on SmackDown, and I guess the bonus of it being a triple threat match is that, you know, you can pick any pair of the three and have them go at it that week, and it's still a little bit fresh and a little bit different. So I guess that's the bonus.
Yeah, it was the perfect way to reintroduce the KO show too.
Mm-hmm.
He was the perfect stirrer because he riled them up and then got the heck out of there.
KO is another, I guess, victim of Kofi Mania. Mustafa Ali, the initial catalyst of said Kofi Mania, then leads into Kevin Owens coming back to like, nah, you're not Kofi. And all the steam in the world is currently behind Kofi. And now we're going to talk about his gauntlet match for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, because we had advertised 5 parts of the match. So.
Wow, no spoilers for the next, like, maybe 8 minutes. we'll hold that off. But the first one up, I believe Sheamus coming it out. The Bar obviously fighting separately.
Yeah, it was a good match. It fed into each. It just helped the story. The story was so emotional all night long, with all the promos that everybody was cutting that included that especially the faces that were in support of Kofi. Mm-hmm. And then you had people sitting there watching it, and the crowd just grew and grew every time they cut to him. Yeah,
this. How long was this, do you think, from start to finish in terms of the first match of the Gauntlet and the end of the Gauntlet?
It was about 65 minutes or something like that, because it got started just before 9 o'clock.
So it's, honestly, I think, a lesson to everybody in how to tell a story in an hour. Because, obviously, there was a story coming in and there's a story going out, but the progress over that hour, the struggles, and then the success, and then the downfall, and then the pick up again, and it was just, as you say, really damn well done.
We begged them to tell us a story. They're telling us a dang story.
They pulled out their book, they put on their reading glasses, and they're ready to go. But first up, at least, Kofi absolutely easily takes out Sheamus. Easy peasy.
Yeah, and then he gets an uppercut for his trouble.
Yeah, and because, of course, if you take out Sheamus, you know Cesaro, he's right around that corner. And immediately at this point, you can pretty much already tell that Kofi's feeling it. Like, on a regular day, Kofi versus Sheamus would have been the match. We'd have been finished, the bell would have rung, and everybody would have gone home. And, you know, Sheamus has held WWE title at least 2 times. I don't remember his number off by heart. But he's not like an easy opponent, as much as I said it was an easy peasy win. And then you transition right from that into Cesaro, who's, I guess, constantly regarded as one of the best wrestlers pound for pound.
Somebody actually mentioned something that made absolute total sense, and it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And that's, Cesaro is arguably the best wrestler with the least amount of charisma. That seems to be very similar to a certain backstage agent named Dean Malenko.
Yeah. I'll give you that. They are on par with one another. But once again, Kofi Kingston, he stands tall, and he's the winner of 2 matches. He's 2-0 in this gauntlet match.
Yeah, and by the way, nobody's ever won a gauntlet match of at least 5 matches before. So he was fighting against history too.
Well, let's see how that goes for him. The third opponent, Rowan, comes on out, and at this point, you know, 2 tough matches, and then you head into the big boy Rowan.
And it ends just about how we expected it, with a disqualification.
Mm-hmm. Basically just beating the ever-loving poop out of him.
Yep.
Obviously the aim here was, if Kofi wasn't already tired from 2 really hard matches, you want to make sure there's zero chance that Kofi Kingston can win this gauntlet match, and the easiest way to do that is to absolutely just beat on him with a steel chair.
And then the Murderers Row, beginning with Joe.
Pretty much your worst nightmare after taking an attack, to hear Samoa Joe's music. Any normal man would have either stayed laying down or just run out of the building if you could.
But Kofi's no ordinary man, and he got a roll-up win.
He had it. He had it. And that's all it is, right? In a gauntlet match, you just gotta get the win. It doesn't matter how you get the win, you just gotta get the win. But once again, even though he won, he didn't come off for the better after the match.
Nope, he got put to sleep. And I made a comment right there. It was like, thank goodness for Kofi that Randy Orton's entrance is really slow.
Because at this point, he's gone through a match with Sheamus, a match with Cesaro, a beating from Rowan, slammed through an announce table, a match with Samoa Joe, being put to sleep by Samoa Joe. And I said that about Samoa Joe's music playing earlier and how you'd run, but now you got Randy Orton's music, because you ain't finished yet.
And Randy Orton was the fitting end for this gauntlet. And they even had a bunch of references to it, too.
Mm-hmm. 2010? 12?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere. I suck at my dates.
It was right before WrestleMania 26. Whenever that was.
9 years ago, 2010. So yeah, 2010. Kofi and Randy had a pretty good feud. It's been referenced before, I believe. It was probably the closest Kofi had gotten to a big title shot. And now I guess again, Randy Orton is the final gatekeeper, or as so we thought, the final gatekeeper to that WWE title opportunity. And again, bit of a roll-up, but it doesn't matter how you win, just matters that you win.
Yeah. And Kofi was even had a handful of tights, too.
He's getting desperate. But he's won his 5 matches, and that means he gets to go to WrestleMania, right?
Or so they announced. But then we all realized, oh crap, there's still 7 minutes left.
Maybe SmackDown will finish early. Maybe.
And then Vince's music played.
I love how often Vince's music's lyrics play into the situation. And in this case, it played in really well.
Yeah, and during the match, even Corey Graves' opinion started changing. He started believing that it could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the commentary team, as you say, sold that story as well. We're talking about how great that storytelling was over an hour, and the commentary team really helped it as well. And there is no way you couldn't feel ripped off when Vince walks down and says, "Hold on, there's a 6th opponent."
And it's WWE Champion Daniel Bryan. And by the way, there was a promo before the match for Daniel Bryan where he literally did call Kofi Kingston a B-plus player.
We had to make it obvious. And not only is it Daniel Bryan, it's Daniel Bryan without the New Day as well. As they must
the New
leave.
Day was banned from ringside the entire gauntlet match.
And Daniel Bryan crushes the hopes and dreams of Kofi, of the New Day, of the entire WWE fanbase.
Yeah, but it was just such an emotional story. I realized I got worked because I actually believed that it was actually going to be real, even though I should have known better. But I love that they are working us into a frenzy, and I don't care that it's a work. It's working. The job that what they're doing is what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And next week's SmackDown is going to be must see, and not because The Miz will be on it.
Well, that as well, but not just because of The Miz.
I would say if I was going to be the booker, what I would do is I would book it to where all the faces that were in support of Kofi come out and say, we're not wrestling at WrestleMania unless you give Kofi what he deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see it. As you say, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they pull off next week. But that is next week, because we're all out of time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRradio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRradio, and we'll see you all next week.